training that I conducted, and it came from something that happened here in Hazard 4 years ago, or not here in Hazard, but in Hazard 4 years ago when I attended a training. And I came home from a training with questions, and Standard Special Grading was the answer to those questions. And here are some of the things that I needed. I needed my grades to represent what my kids knew, and I needed a way for them to communicate what they were not proficient in and what holes in my curriculum that I had. So it all started out with a little training. Here's our process. It really started with deconstruction of those standards, really deconstructing them in student-friendly language. We did this in our training. They worked really hard. We'd talk about it. They'd go work. We'd come back and forth during our training. And she can talk about that in just a second. As you see, our kids use formative assessment.
It was going without you real fast.
That's okay.
Where you want to be? Is that where you want to be?
That's okay. Next one. I put a time limit on these.
Okay. I will follow.
I'm not going to keep that. You box me in, I will get out. Okay? So we create a target check based upon those student-friendly learning targets. We create a pre-assessment. We pre-assess them. We see, hey, do I even need to teach this? What do my kids know coming to me? We take the information. Formative assessments become real. If you don't use formative assessments, this is not going to work. We formatively assess our kids, we give them feedback, and then they look at those mistakes on those feedbacks that we give them. We give them a level of mastery. The elementary teachers decided to go with the 0 through 4 scale, 1 through 4. I stuck with the 3 because that's what I learned from Ken Mattingly. If you know Ken Mattingly, then you know why I think the way I think. And you can see the target practice is completed before every single target check. And kids will practice individually on the targets they did not master. A little girl, you didn't really hear her saying in the video, she was so impressive, but she was so quiet when she talked about partial mastery. Just hearing the kids speak the language when I went into the schools with my student and made the video was awesome. You can see here, stop that slide if you don't mind. Getting on the box again. You can see this is what our kids do. Go back. They learn the skill. They practice the skill. They look at mistakes on formative assessments that we give. Quick little snapshots of things within our classroom. They fix those mistakes. They quiz. Okay? After that first quiz or target check, we call them target checks. They're no longer called quizzes or tests. They're called target checks. We want to get away from the test anxiety. We'll ask our kids and they will tell you test anxiety is flying out the window big time because they know they have a chance to look at mistakes and learn from them later. You can see that they ask for help, they help each other. I had more potential math teachers in my classroom than I ever had because they peer tutor so much, they talk about math, and it's just awesome. Right now I can think of 4 in my first period that I hope one day they become a math teacher. So what happens if they don't get it after 2? Because I administer 2 within class. These kids find me. They find me before 8. They find me during break. They find me after school. Elementary kids have a little bit harder. My kids can drive. My kids ride the bus and get there. But I make time. They have to do practice or I don't let them retake. They cannot just come in there and take that without showing me some work, but they've earned that practice. And you can see, again, I'm so sorry. I knew these times were not very good.
We're good.
You go again. The Infinite Campus does get updated each time, so parents can see as the kids are improving. The parents know whether or not they're going in and putting the extra time to get the grades up. So after the 2, definitely a 3. And I unfortunately have had a few kids who've had to do 4. Kids learn at different levels. Does it take a lot of my extra time? Yes, it does. But when kids start feeling successful at the beginning of the school year, then something happens to them on the inside. They start changing. Learning becomes easier in my classroom. And confidence builds. Therefore, the math achievement is going up. And they don't need as many takes as the year goes on. Marzano is the mastermind behind all of this. If you've not read anything about standards-based grading, you can see here that research shows that if a kid can articulate what they are learning, they are more likely to learn that target. I recommend anything that you can find with the standards. in your district. One of my favorite shows is Criminal Minds. I'm not sure what that says about my mind, but I love it. And one of my favorite things about the show are the quotes at the opening and the closing. And the other Saturday night, of course, one was on. It's always on A&E. And I hear one, and the quote was by Robert Bernard Shaw. It was, "The mistake or the problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place." And how many times do we think we have communicated the lesson? And then if we don't do a formative assessment, you know, oh, hey, I've taught it. If we don't get anything back from them, if we don't allow the kids to communicate back to us, then we really don't know what has happened there. And if we don't have that two-way communication happening throughout, then nothing's really occurring in your classroom. So Sand Springs Grading really has opened up the line of communication for us and allowed us to know what the kids know and what they don't know. Are you serious? Keep going. This is just an example of some learning targets that we give students. I'm pleased to say that Ms. Collins here, my son is in her classroom, and I see him come home. This is an example of a bulletin board where the teachers display their learning practice or target practice. They just go up, they find the target number, they grab their work. A lot less hassle for the teachers. You can see here, we really have to tie in the formative assessments. We have to use those to drive our instruction along the way before we get to that summative. Well, we go pretty fast here. Just keep going real good. Here's the magic. This is my favorite slide. You know, I've learned so much more from the mistakes that I've made in my life than from anything I ever did right. And when we give our kids a chance in class in front of me, not at home, where there's no one to help them, I think it's significant that they examine that mistake and have others help them examine that mistake after a target check and they learn from that. It builds perseverance. It just builds confidence. And while they're looking at these mistakes, look what's happening to the kids who've mastered everything. Those future math teachers that are in my classroom are the kids who are at the bottom of this pyramid. They are helping teach others when they get all their threes. They're going to retain 90% of that. So it's not a wasted day for my kids who have mastered every single learning target. Not a wasted day at all. This is what's happening. Work ethic obviously has improved. We have parents who are impressed. We have parents who are like, "You mean my kid can do this?" Well, yes, of course. And just a lot of good things going on. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy. I've not left her a lot of time. I am so sorry.
Hi. This makes my first year using state-based grading, but it's been my 5th year of teaching math. When Jennifer first came and asked for us to go, and my principal told us, called and said, go to this training, I was unsure of what it was at first because I thought, well, I know my standards. I teach my standards. But what it enabled me to do was I not only started to teach my standards, but my assessment was my standards. My assessment wasn't unnecessary paperwork. It wasn't just a grade for my kids. When it first started, the kids were kind of thrown by it. The kids were kind of thrown by it because they were used to Miss Cindy teaching a certain way, and my teaching really didn't change. It's just the way I assessed them did. They became to the point where if I taught a certain unit, they were no longer given a test back that had, say, a failing grade on it. They would look at that and say, oh, I had an F, or I got an F. But then if they looked at the targets, they thought, well, I just only missed it by 2 targets. And if they practiced those 2 targets before they knew it, they moved from an F to a B. And they not only got to feel the success of it, but they knew that they knew. As Jennifer said, they're not allowed to take the second practice target or target check without giving me those practices. I look through them, and if they've not achieved what they need to even on those practices, they have to go back and redo it. But the biggest thing for me was we do discovery ed testing at our school. We do beginning of the year, middle of the year, and toward the end. And when these kids first came to me, and of course, to see it with your own eyes is what gets me. This was the first test, and if you'll notice, there's several pinks, lots of yellows, very little blue, very little green. Second take, no pinks. very little blues, but still a lot of yellows, but no pinks. But at the end of it, this is what I was able to see. Nothing changed with my teaching, except that the children, the kids themselves, started taking ownership with their grades. They chose, hey, I do not want a 2 on this target. I want a 3. I want a 4. And they learned the standard themselves. It wasn't just me teaching it. They started to learn it. But it's just turned my classroom around, and it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. If somebody were to ask me, would you do it again?